Well, this week has again proved challenging for Australians of the Catholic faith as Cardinal George Pell appealed his conviction on charges of sexual abuse. Those calling for reform within the Catholic Church say recent events have paved the way to expand the role of women in the organisation. 1 in every 5 people in Australia identifies as Catholic. Of those, 52% are women. Now there are those who believe the time has come for women to be ordained as priests. But that's something the Vatican has said will not happen. Norman Hermont has this week's special report on who gets to keep the faith.
Home is a refuge for Kate Englebrecht. Somewhere the committed Catholic can pray and reflect.
Right back, thanks.
After the conviction of Cardinal George Pell and the Royal Commission into institutional sexual abuse, she believes the church she loves must change.
If not after this catastrophe, then when? And frankly, if change doesn't come, and major change doesn't come, then the church really is a goner. It's irrelevant.
Until a few months ago, she worked for the church in a nearby diocese in country New South Wales. Now she makes pastoral home visits and speaks about the need for a greater role for women in all parts of the church, including her desire to become a priest. Something the Pope has made clear will not happen.
I live with the longing to serve in a way that I'm not going to be allowed to.
The church's adherence to traditional beliefs has driven some Catholics away. In South Brisbane, in a trade union building, you'll find St. Mary's in Exile. A decade ago, this congregation worshipped down the street in a Catholic church, but progressive stances, including calls for a leading role for women, led to a split.
In eating this bread and drinking this wine,
here, women help lead communion and regularly give sermons.
This community has always been about the inclusion of women, and I suppose here it's not just about feeling equal with the men in the community, it's feeling equal with the priests.
What's noteworthy about this chapel?
In Catholicism, only men can be ordained, based on a theological interpretation that dates back to the very beginnings of the church.
At Mass, behind the altar, they are standing in the place of Christ. And therefore the argument is they have to be male in order to stand in the place of Christ, in order to represent Christ.
Among Australia's 6 million Catholics, there are many who accept that interpretation and still seek reform. Next year, the church will hold its first plenary council in more than 80 years. Bishops will consider and vote on ideas for change. Sally Hood is helping plan the process. Greater responsibility for women in the church will be on the agenda, something she thinks is vital after recent events.
I don't know many, if any, committed Catholics who, at the time of the Pell conviction, heard that news and didn't feel deeply saddened, betrayed, hurt.
But her desire for change has limits.
How do you feel that women cannot be ordained as Catholic priests?
For me, as a young woman, I don't look at that and feel excluded from something. So God has created men and created women very differently, and for good reasons.
Kate Englebrecht believes the time for that sort of thinking is past.
So far, it's been as long as you've got testicles, you're in. But come to us as a woman, and there's no question you have no vocation to the priesthood. We won't test it with you, we won't explore that with you, it's just not possible. It's insane.
She believes if the Royal Commission and the Pell verdict have taught the Catholic Church anything, it's that becoming a priest should be determined by character, not gender. Norman Hermont, ABC News.